Wikipedia, and I'm really grateful to be included in this forum, and I really want to extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Chang for the invitation. The first thing I'd like to do is to give everybody an overview of the regulatory system associated with botanical products in the United States. So in the first case, there's no botanical medicine in the national healthcare system of the United States. This is different than most of the rest of the world. Now, most states, allow for the practice of traditional Chinese medicine, but with the primary focus being acupuncture. There's only 7 states out of our 50 states that allow for the practice of Chinese herbal medicine. Another characteristic of the American medical system is that it's focused on business, not health as a human right. So this is also very different than most of the world. Most of the world has a nationalized healthcare system where it's more herbal or healthcare is considered more of a right than it is a business. And this adds a tremendous profit motive to the medical system that doesn't exist in many other countries. Another characterization of the American medical system is that there's very little emphasis on health care. We predominantly focus on the treatment of disease, and that's a real problem in the United States. As I said, there's 47 states that allow for the practice of traditional Chinese medicine, but only 7 that allow for herbal medicine. However, herbs are not federally recognized. They're not recognized by the federal government to be allowed to be used as medicines. Instead, they can only be used as dietary supplements. These are herbs, vitamins, minerals, things like that. There is a process by which botanical drugs can be approved, but since 2004, more than 600 submissions have been made for botanical drugs, but only 2 botanical drugs have been approved in that time. The first botanical drug that was approved was the latex from a tree from South America known as dragon's blood, and it's specifically used for the treatment of diarrhea in patients with HIV. The second botanical drug was a green tea extract, standardized to 90% catechins and made as an ointment, specifically for the treatment of genital warts. Now, interestingly, neither of these uh, herbal drugs or botanical drugs, there's no other conventional drugs for these particular uses. And I predict that FDA will probably never approve of a drug that competes with the conventional drug. So dietary supplements consist of Ayurvedic herbs, Chinese Western herbs, nutritional supplements such as vitamin A, B, C, D, E, zinc, selenium, all the minerals. And dietary supplements are regulated by all relevant regulatory agencies such as the FDA, Federal Trade Commission, and also individual state laws and regulations. So it's a highly regulated industry, but they're regulated differently than pharmaceutical drugs. There are a number of specifications that are required for the manufacture of dietary supplements. The first is that an identity specification must be established for all ingredients. Second, that we have to have specifications for the purity, strength, composition of dietary supplement ingredients and finished products. And we also must have limits on the types of contaminations that may adulterate a particular ingredient. For example, if we're using Stephania, Hanfangji, and we know that Aristolochia or Guangfangji may adulterate that market, we must set up a limit to ensure that adulterations are not allowed in the ingredients. Another requirement is that all the methods that are used to determine or comply with specifications must be appropriate for their intended use. They must be scientifically valid for their purpose. And in most countries, herbal products must comply with pharmacopoeia monographs. However, in the United States, this is not the case. All compliance for dietary supplements is voluntary. So A company, a manufacturer, must develop their own specifications. They may choose to follow a pharmacopoeia monograph, but they don't have to. But they must set up their own specifications, their own testing methodology, and they must have the documentation that they are, in fact, complying with specs. So in most countries, pharmacopoeias are required to be followed for botanical medicines. In the United States, this is not the case. Instead, the only class of products that must meet monograph requirements are conventional medications, Western conventional drugs. And when there's a conventional Western drug approved, it must comply with the monograph of the United States Pharmacopoeia. Again, in most countries, pharmacopoeias are national government organizations. In the United States, all pharmacopoeias are independent organizations, usually 501c3 nonprofit organizations. Um, they are not a government organization. Botanical drugs and botanical dietary supplements, no monograph required to be complied with. Instead, manufacturers have the choice to comply, follow monographs of the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia, the European Pharmacopoeia, Hong Kong Standard, Indian Pharmacopoeia, the Pharmacopoeia of the People's Republic of China, the Taiwanese Herbal Pharmacopoeia, United States Pharmacopoeia, World Health Organization, or any other authoritative source that a manufacturer feels is appropriate for their class of products. So these are, again, voluntary conformity to other monographs that already exist, or a manufacturer can develop their own specification and not follow any monograph. So this is a key difference between the regulatory system of the United States and the rest of the world. The primary source of information for botanical herbal medicine quality control is with the United States Pharmacopoeia. As I said, they are the officially accepted standards for conventional drugs, but they are voluntary standards with regards to herbal products. And they have their USP for the drugs, and they also have what's called a dietary supplement compendium. And they also have a certification service in which they vet or inspect manufacturers who choose to voluntarily participate in that certification program. And like most pharmacopoeias or all other pharmacopoeias, they provide reference materials, both drugs and for botanicals, so that manufacturers who choose to follow USP have the reference materials that they need in order to comply with USP specifications. A typical USP monograph is very much like other pharmacopoeia monographs throughout the world, in that it provides guidance for identification, such as nomenclatural guidelines, definition of what that botanical ingredient is made up of, identity specs, including macroscopic and microscopic characterizations, chemical characterizations, profile of constituents. There's also requirements for strength and composition of known constituents with known activity or marker compounds. Sometimes there are limits for potentially toxic constituents, and sometimes our USP also specifies levels for contaminants such as pesticides, metals, microbial levels, things like that. Again, these are voluntary requirements, are voluntary standards that people can choose to follow. And again, this is what a standard USP pharmacopoeia monograph looks like. This herb is with Valerian officinalis, but it's very much like many other international pharmacopoeias in terms of format and the information that it provides. In addition, the USP has what's called the Dietary Supplement Compendium. This was developed originally in the general chapters division of the USP, and it consists of illustrations of the plant itself, morphological characteristics, microscopic characteristics, HPTLC plates, as well as LC or HPLC chromatograms, so that it's more illustrative. And this is a great tool for manufacturers to use, but again, unfortunately, or it's not mandatory, but nevertheless, is an incredibly important source of reference materials. The second primary source of quality control information in the United States is the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia and Therapeutic Compendium. Like USP, AHP is a non-governmental, non-profit organization. A primary focus is to develop quality control monographs that are similar to every other monograph system in the world, with a few exceptions, which I'll talk about in a second. We also have a therapeutic compendium in which we review the therapeutic information on that particular botanical, pharmacology, clinical studies, preclinical studies, in vitro animal studies, chemistry, pharmacology, toxicology, drug interaction side effects. This is a very important part of the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia and Therapeutic Compendiums. Our job is, one, to help to establish quality control standards, but it's also bigger than that, in that we're trying to re-educate the American public and manufacturers of what is required for true quality control of botanical medicines, and to provide critical review information about the therapeutic use and safety of botanical ingredients. This is important in the United States because, for the most part, the United States lost its traditional knowledge of herbal medicine many, many years ago, and it only came back in the last 30 years, where people have gotten reinterested in natural products. Whereas in China and in India with Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine, this tradition was never really broken. It's gone through ups and downs, but it's never really been broken. So the knowledge base of both traditional and Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine was always intact, where that wasn't the case in the United States. And so we developed the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia and Therapeutic Compendium specifically to bring back that traditional knowledge, but taking traditional wisdom that is still available in old texts and available in Ayurvedic and Chinese sources, and integrating that with modern scientific review. And we're one of the only organizations in the United States that does that as fully as we do. We also provide botanical reference materials, as do other pharmacopoeias. We provide botanical identification services, in that a manufacturer can send us a material and we can help them to make sure that they're using the correct material. And in conjunction with the American Botanical Council and the University of Mississippi, we co-partner on a botanical adulteration prevention program in order to help prevent adulteration in the U.S. botanical market. This is what a typical American Herbal Pharmacopoeia and Therapeutic Compendium looks like. And then this, in this case, is Dangui. And we take the herb all the way from the field, the botanical description, which no other pharmacopoeia actually in the world presents. They only present information on the crude drug, all the way to what it looks like, tastes like, smells like, with traditional organoleptic sensory assessment, to where the herb should be picked, how it should be dried, optimal conditions for drying and storage, preparations, chemistry, analytics, HPTLC, microscopy, HPLC, and whatever analytical methods are specific for that botanical. We then, once these different sections are drafted, we send them all over the world to be reviewed by a multidisciplinary committee of experts, medicinal plant experts. The first is botanical identification, to make sure we have the right botanical. The second is macroscopic characterization, which both gives the illustrations and text descriptions of various grades and qualities and forms that the botanical might come with. In this case, in something like Dangui, you have many different forms and grades of Dangui. And we also have to ensure that we characterize the adulteration so that if a person or manufacturer gets the wrong herb, in this case, Odangwe, or European Angelica or European Levisticum, which is an adulterant, they can recognize that, as well as the different, we try to maintain the knowledge of the traditional manner in which Dangui is characterized from, from a head, the body, and the tails. Again, integrating traditional knowledge with scientific investigation. Microscopic characterization, providing the illustrations as well as the photographic images, information again on quality, cultivation, handling, processing, storage, drying, etc. And then complete chemical characterization with HPTLC of the authentic material, as well as inclusion of the adulterating potential adulterants and contaminants that may occur, and then quantitative specific actives or marker compounds. In this case, we partnered with Professor Xiaopei Gun at Beijing to develop this method, Angelica. This was from his methodology. And then, as I mentioned, we have this full therapeutic compendium in which we outline the kinetics, human clinical trials, preclinical pharmacology, animal studies, dosage, side effects, contraindications, use in pregnancy, drug interactions, overdose, every aspect that we can think of with regards to what constitutes the safety of this botanical ingredient. Most pharmacopoeias don't have this therapeutic part to it. But again, part of the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia's job is to re-educate both health practitioners, consumers, regulators, pretty much everyone in North America as to the credible information and critically reviewed information on the therapeutics and safety of a botanical so that they can have and make an educated choice of whether they feel they should use it or not. Another part of each therapeutic compendium is the traditional herbal medicine supplement. In this case, in the monograph at Dangui, we specifically outline the knowledge, do our best to preserve the traditional knowledge as presented by traditional Chinese medicine experts. So whereas in the other portion of the therapeutic compendium, we're focusing on Western medical research, or I should say scientific research, in this section, we give focus specifically to the traditional knowledge that's been established for that herb. Again, traditional actions, traditional indications, following the Chinese, authoritative Chinese literature, information on processing, poucher, as well as classic pairs and combinations, Dui Yao. And again, this section is developed by specialists in traditional Chinese medicine so that we're not only presenting the Western scientific approach regarding the knowledge base of a traditional Chinese herb, but we're also preserving the traditional Chinese medicine knowledge and tradition. So we give both at the same time. In addition, so as I mentioned, once we have these different sections developed, they're sent all over the world to a variety of different medicinal plant experts. These are experts in botany, in chemistry, in medicine, in pharmacy, pharmacognosy, specialists in traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, naturopathic physicians, herbalists, toxicologists, pharmacologists, as broadly as possible to get a multidisciplinary expertise from true medicinal plant experts, and not just in the United States, but all over the world. And we maintain a very strong cadre of scientific advisors in each of these disciplines, including many in traditional Chinese medicine in China, predominantly in China, some in the United States. And we branch out as far and wide as possible so that we have, at the end of the day, once a monograph is developed, that is the most comprehensive and critically reviewed information on a botanical medicine that exists anywhere in the English language. And so we continually reach out and would love to have representatives in Taiwan as well. In addition to the development of the monographs and therapeutic compendiums, I mentioned the Botanical Adulterants Prevention Program, and this is in cooperation with the American Botanical Council, which is a nonprofit research organization in Austin, Texas, and the National Center for Natural Products Research, which is housed at the University of Mississippi. The National Center for Natural Products Research is one of the primary medicinal plant research organizations in the United States, and they routinely interface with FDA with all issues regarding quality control, plant identification, plant analysis, plant toxicology, and they're also involved in the training of FDA inspectors that actually go out and inspect manufacturers. So with this partnership between American Botanical Council, AHP, and the National Center for Natural Products Research, we developed this Botanical Adulterants Prevention Program, and all of the materials that we publish are completely free access materials from in any country, anyone at any time, at that link that I give on the page. To date, we have more than 50 peer-reviewed publications specifically on adulterations. We maintain a Botanical Adulterants Prevention Program bulletin to make industry aware of adulterants that we become aware of, Botanical Adulterants Monitor, and probably most importantly, we provide laboratory guidance documents that line all of the analytical methodologies that are used for a particular botanical, specifically highlighting what we believe are the strengths and weaknesses of analytical methodologies. And literally, we have hundreds of supporters internationally, from individuals to organizations to government organizations, private organizations, academic institutes, industry organizations, industry manufacturers. So again, we reach out broadly so that we can present and we get the most definitive information on botanical adulteration that exists anywhere in the world. And again, this program is financially supported by individuals and organizations and manufacturers, and that allows us to make all of these publications freely accessible through the American Botanical Council. And this is what some our botanical adulterants prevention bulletins look like on different herbs. And again, this outlines the market conditions for those herbs, how to identify and why adulterations occur with the herb. Again, some of the analytical methodology that exists on ensuring that we have authentic material and freely accessible. And then a third source of authoritative information in North America comes from the Natural Healthcare Directorate in Canada. And in Canada, they don't truly recognize botanical drugs as drugs, but they do recognize them as traditional medicines, much as the rest of the world does recognize botanicals as traditional medicines. In Canada, these are known as natural healthcare products. In such a case, natural healthcare products can have specific therapeutic claims, such as an herb can be used for prevention of colds, or to promote sleep and insomnia or mild insomnia, whereas in the United States, drug claims are not allowed on herbal products. We can only talk about the potential health benefits of an herb. We can't talk about therapeutic use of the plant. Very different. The Natural Healthcare Directorate in Canada allows for such claims, and they've developed numerous monographs on a variety of herbal medicines, including Chinese and Ayurvedic herbal compounds, in this case, an example of astragalus. And these are freely available as well through the Natural Healthcare Directorate in Canada. But in addition to the therapeutic reviews that the Natural Healthcare Directorate provides on herbal products, is that they usually defer to national pharmacopoeias on the quality side. And so they don't have their own pharmacopoeia. So they'll defer to the United States Pharmacopoeia, the European Pharmacopoeia, the Chinese Pharmacopoeia. I don't know if they accept the Taiwanese herbal pharmacopoeia or any other herbal pharmacopoeia, but they typically defer to nationally accepted pharmacopoeias for the quality control aspect of natural healthcare products. But this is a second source of authoritative information on botanical medicines in the United States, and actually available throughout the world, and again, freely accessible. Again, this is just another example of a monograph that they have. They have approximately 130 of these, and as I said, the quality standards are deferred to other pharmacopoeias. So, in conclusion, in the United States, monographs are an invaluable source, an important source of information regarding quality control, but manufacturers are not required to comply with monograph standards. However, each of these different sources of authoritative information can be used by manufacturers. And if a manufacturer claims compliance with any of these, Hong Kong standards, Taiwanese herbal pharmacopoeia, the pharmacopoeia of China, then by law, the manufacturer must adhere to those guidelines. So if a manufacturer chooses to follow an American Herbal Pharmacopoeia monograph, then FDA must ensure that they do. If a manufacturer claims to comply with the Pharmacopoeia of the People's Republic of China, or the Taiwanese Herbal Pharmacopoeia, or the United States Pharmacopoeia, then they're all equally are held up as a matter of law, that manufacturers therefore must comply with whatever they say they comply with. And if they say they comply with internal standards, they have to show documentation that those internal standards are met with appropriate scientifically valid analytical methodologies. So that's the nature of herbal medicine quality control in the United States in a very condensed presentation. I welcome any comments or questions regarding any of this information or anything else regarding the regulation of herbal medicine in the United States. You can get me at my email at herbal@got.net. And I invite you to visit our website at www.herbal-ahp.org. And again, I hope this has been helpful to give you a sense of how things are done in the United States. And I sincerely appreciate the invitation to participate. Dr. Chang, thank you very much, and I wish you much success in the rest of your forum. Thank you.